Hello, we're going to talk some physics. We have some changes in physics now that allow us to find things like free energy. What we found out is that everything communicates. And when it does, it creates something from nothing. It's kind of a God concept. As a matter of fact, I believe in God. I feel like this physics reinforces God. But anyway, so all things communicate, and we call it entanglement, but for this theory, we call it a robust entanglement because there's a bunch happening. There are 4 species of fields that are produced. So when something entangles, you have something here and something here, and when they line up passively and orient themselves and find a symmetry, we find a perfectly elastic line of communication. And it creates what I call a P-lock, perfectly elastic line of communication field. All right? This is the first kind of field. The second field is produced within this field. That's called a Psylock. Semi-inelastic line of communication. And if a symmetry can be found in this field, it will form inside here. Now this P-lock field, the margins are stationary. But in the Psylock, as the symmetry is formed, the margins are then are moving and move very fast. All right, so a Psylock, let's see, it looks like this. All right, so after a Psylock field is produced, if within the Psylock field the symmetry is found, an I-lock can form. I-L-O-C. And here the margins are moving incredibly fast. It's moving so fast that a standing wave can be created or formed as the locale or the location of this forming symmetry and forming field forms. There's a slight translation, all right? It forms a standing wave phenomenon. Okay, now it's important as once this I-lock forms, it can actually interact with the previous field, the Psylock, and create what's called a kinetic effect field where there's a shifting back and forth, all right? Now, in entanglements, something is created from nothing, right? A field. Now, the character, or the rate density of this field is formed from the character of this locale or location plus, or not a plus, but applied, an applied distance, this distance here, all right? And it's a Pythagorean relationship. Location squared plus the distance squared gives us a resultant field rate density. This is kind of it's a Pythagorean relationship, but it means that everything that we look at has a logarithmic appearance. That's why everything in nature has a logarithmic appearance, and why we're always looking for constant squared, because in our results, in our empiric data, this Pythagorean relationship kind of reveals itself. In other words, we plug in values like mass or length or radii or something like that, and when we start to find true connections to relationships, it involves this Pythagorean squaring process. Okay, so in most equations we find a constant squared, and we find this because of this Pythagorean relationship that we have of natural things that we find in nature, like distance and character, things that we measure. Okay, so let's talk about gravity and electromagnetism and strong and weak forces, all right? These are all conceptions, man-made conceptions, all right? And they all have to do with different distance classes and entanglements, all right? If we were to look at different distance classes of entanglements. It just means that, well, the fields that are being produced at this distance with the same objects look different than the fields produced at shorter distances, etc., okay? And so you get different phenomena. And the reason you get different phenomena is because for a certain rate, density, or characteristic intraatomic field, all right, just a certain type, say one type, it's going to connect or entangle more readily with certain types of fields, say gravitational, or electromagnetic, or strong, or weak, okay? Now, this theory allows us to develop a model for the formation of matter. It kind of looks like something like this, and like that, and kind of develops into you get kind of a rotation, right? And then same rotation. And finally, this inner part starts to rotate. And these are all complex elastic events. Okay. Once this rotates, these two rotate kind of in the same direction, and this middle part starts rotating in the opposite way. The whole time, it's kind of a mushroom-looking thing. Right. Same rotation here, same rotation here. This starts rotating the opposite way, and it starts drawing in the center. This is not a very good drawing. All right, so this is rotation here. And we'll say the opposite there and the opposite here. All right, comes back around. Finally, there's a collision, and you could get a standing wave phenomena and traveling wave phenomena. All right, and this comes out around like this. It goes back around again, up, and again. And it creates the patterns that we see in the periodic table. It's fascinating. Anyway, but when this collision occurs, there's a, you can imagine there's a one cycle and another cycle. Two rotation processes that create elastic autonomous entities, atoms. And as the atoms are influenced, as the system progresses through different traveling and standing wave complexes, you get more and more complex gyrations in this elastic dance, and you get different species of atoms. Okay, let's talk. So no four forces. Okay? It's all one elastic communication over different distances. So no things like no conservation of matter, no conservation of energy. Those don't exist. Acceleration doesn't exist. Light is a phenomenon. There's no relativity theory. Relativity theory is actually regarding distance now. It's not light. But that's just a brief introduction